Yo, what is up, guys? It's Cohen back here again today with another video. Back with another recap of the NBA games from today. There weren't very many games, and I particularly want to talk about almost entirely one game and one team, and that is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They beat the Sacramento Kings by 14 points today in a really good showing that has kind of perpetuated something that I've kind of believed about them this season that I think they have shown and proven this season, and that's that the Timberwolves have found a core. It's been a long time since the Minnesota Timberwolves have had a promising future. They had a little bit with Wiggins and Towns after they drafted the two of those guys. They added in Jimmy Butler, and things looked to be looking up for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then we had the thing where Jimmy Butler went into practice, beat the starters with the third stringers and all that drama. So the Timberwolves have been kind of up and down for the past few years, and their only playoff appearance was that 1 year with Jimmy Butler. And since then, they've been back right down to the bottom of the NBA standings. They've missed on a couple draft picks. Jarrett Culver wasn't quite a hit, but it looks like they've hit big with Anthony Edwards. Now, I know they had the number one overall pick, and so it wasn't a very difficult decision, but you still have to make the right pick there. And it's looking like, wow, a lot of people have talked about this season how the Wolves should have picked LaMelo Ball, and I do think that is something that they absolutely could have done. I think he would have been a great fit here. Anthony Edwards looks like the real deal. And unfortunately, Edwards and LaMelo Ball are always going to be compared to each other. I talked about this in my video about Anthony Edwards a month or so ago. They're always going to be compared to each other because it looks like they are the two best players from this draft class. And that's just kind of always the way it goes. Talk about Zion and John Morant just last year. Those are two guys who are forever going to be tied together. Luka Doncic and Trae Young. Whenever one is talked about, the other one is also talked about. They're always going to be tied together, and that's really unfortunate because they're both great players in their own right, and they should not be tied down to their comparisons. They should be talked about as individual players. But just talking about Anthony Edwards, he is the real deal. I'm someone who personally thought LaMelo Ball was the pick at number one overall, but Anthony Edwards is proving to me that he was a perfect pick at that spot, and that he may have even been the right pick. Now, there's a lot of career on to go, and I promise this is the last time I'm going to talk about LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards in combination in this video. But I think they're both going to have fantastic careers, and I think Anthony Edwards is continuing to prove why he was picked number one overall and why he was, I don't want to say a consensus, but it was pretty much a lock. It was pretty obvious the Timberwolves were going to pick him at first overall. He is an electric scorer. When he goes out there, he is going to score the basketball. That's what he's always going to do. He's going to put up shots. He has confidence like no one else out there on the court for the Minnesota Timberwolves. No one on the Wolves is as confident as Anthony Edwards. He has like an alpha dog mentality. Every time Anthony Edwards goes out on that court, he thinks he's the best player out there. You could put whoever you could put like Kevin Durant or like LeBron James out there, and Anthony Edwards is still going to think that he is the best player on the basketball court. That's just who he is. That's just his mentality. And I think that's a really important mentality to have when you have a Wolves team that has kind of lacked that for a while. Karl Anthony Towns is a great player, but he hasn't quite seemed like the leader that the Timberwolves might need. Anthony Edwards feels like he has that potential to be their leader and be their number one guy on a lot of nights. Combine him with, like I just mentioned, Karl Anthony Towns, a all-time great shooting center, someone who can knock down a shot from pretty much anywhere on the court. The only knock on Karl Anthony Towns' game is his defense. And so, theoretically, you have to put a good defensive front court member alongside him, right? That's where Jaden McDaniels comes in. Jalen McDaniels has been... Wait, which one did I just say? McDaniels has been fantastic. I mixed up the Jaden and Jalen McDaniels names. I apologize. McDaniels has been absolutely fantastic for the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was a steal, and he looks exactly like the player you want next to Karl Anthony Towns. He can knock down his jumpers. He can play lockdown defense. He has a really good defensive frame. He kind of gets in the way. He is like one of the prototypical players that we've seen coming out of some of these draft classes where he has a ton of length, he gets in passing lanes, and he makes life really difficult for the opposing team. You saw tonight that was shown a lot against the Kings. McDaniels was a steal, and while he may not be their power forward of the future, they may find someone in this draft. Maybe say they go out and they get an Evan Mobley and they put him next to Cat at like a 4 and a 5 combination there. So having McDaniels still there is an incredible benefit to the Minnesota Timberwolves. McDaniels is really, really good. I don't want to harp on him too much because there's more players I do want to talk about, but do not let him fly under the radar when we're talking about the Timberwolves. He's really good. Then we move into D'Lo, who was the best player probably for the Timberwolves at a lot of points tonight. He's been coming off the bench recently because he's coming off surgery and they're trying to ease him back into things, but tonight was probably the best D'Angelo Russell has looked maybe since the days he was in Brooklyn. He looked like the Brooklyn D'Angelo Russell tonight. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't been super high on the idea of pairing D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns. I've always pictured D'Angelo Russell as a guy who is going to be your second or probably your third or fourth best player on a championship team, just because I don't know what it is, but he looked incredible tonight. And while I do still think he cannot be your first or second option on a championship team, he probably doesn't have to. If D'Angelo Russell is your third best guy between Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns when they both develop and continue to grow, that's perfect. That's perfectly fine. That's a fantastic three that you have right there. You add in a solid four and some solid defenders around those guys, and you have what looks like a really good team up and coming for the future, which is what I think the Timberwolves have here. You throw in guys like a Malik Beasley, who was playing really, really well before he went out with injury, and ultimately, when he comes back into the fold of things, Beasley's going to fit right back in. I think he is their sixth man of the future. I think he's going to be that spark plug off the bench for the Timberwolves for the coming years. They have him locked up, and the way he has kind of shown out and he improved this season, I think he's there for the long term to be that bench spark plug for them. You add in a guy like Josh Okogie, who could be a defensive stopper for you at times you need him to continue developing. You've got a nice young core there. Maybe you can get something out of Jarrett Culver. I'm not quite sure what is left there in the tank, but maybe you could get something out of him. Naz Reid. I love Naz Reid. I think Naz Reid is going to be a great backup center for them. I love Naz Reid's game. He can stretch the floor. He's really mobile for a big, and I feel like he makes impact plays every time he's on the court. That's a lot from watching him. The last time we played the Timberwolves, it felt like Naz Reid was a factor in every single play, every time he was on the court. And that's kind of just what he does. He feels like he makes hustle impact plays. This Wolves team, while they're really bad right now, or they have been bad this season, they're on the up. Chris Finch has done an incredible job coaching them. He is trying out different things. He's letting the offense run the way it's probably supposed to. He's letting Anthony Edwards do whatever the hell he wants, which is exactly what you should do. Anthony Edwards, in my opinion, is going to be the best player on this Timberwolves team if they make a return to contention, or not even a return to contention, if they finally make it to contention, not even for just the playoffs, but if they want to go for a title, I think Anthony Edwards is going to have to end up being their best player. I think it's him and Cat will be their 1A, 1B type thing, and you throw in a D'Angelo Russell out there at the 3 spot, you add in like a Malik Beasley, and a draft pick in this draft. One of the most important things to this Wolves team's future is landing a draft pick. They need to get that pick, and it's on the verge of falling to the Warriors. It's top 3 protected for the Timberwolves. If they are not able to keep that pick, that's a massive loss for them. They need to get that pick, because if you take all of that I just talked about and add in, if you get a top 3 pick, you get one of Cade, Mobley, Suggs, or even like a Jalen Green or a Jonathan Kuminga. I would say probably the top 3 are Cade, Suggs, and Mobley, maybe a Jalen Green, but I don't think he really fits them as much. If you get one of those top 3, 4 guys, you're set. I think this team is going to then has one of the best young cores in the NBA, but you have to get that pick. And they're playing too well right now, if I'm being honest. The Rockets are playing terribly, and it's looking like the Rockets are probably going to have the first overall odds or the best odds to get that number 1 overall pick. They're going to be number 1 in the lottery with the worst record in the NBA by the end of the season, just because the Timberwolves are on the up and up. I didn't think the Rockets were going to catch the Timberwolves, and then they went on a 20-game losing streak, and the Timberwolves, since getting Chris Finch, have been okay. I'm not necessarily saying they've been a good team, but they've been an okay team, and they're showing those strides. Just like, oh my God, I'm going to throw the Thunder in here again. Just like I've been watching with the Thunder this season, even when we're bad, it looks like we're making strides. Guys are developing, guys are learning how to play with each other, and it looks like they're growing as players every single night. That's what I've seen in the Timberwolves. From the start of the season to right now, Anthony Edwards looks like an entirely different player. It's not even close. Anthony Edwards at the beginning of the season would shoot 4 for 19 every single night. And now he has efficient games. He scores 40 points. He can go out and score 30 almost any given night, mid-20s. Right now he's just under 20 points per game on the season. And he's bringing up that efficiency. He has been incredible for them since the All-Star break and right before that. Anthony Edwards looks like a completely different player, and all you can ask for in a season where your team is not good is development and growth. And I think this season where they learn to develop and grow next to each other is really going to benefit them in the long term. If they get a top 3 pick, this Wolves team will be back in the playoff hunt and potentially title contention a few years down the line, but they'll be back in the playoff hunt maybe as soon as next season or the season after. I think the Wolves finally have a direction. At the start of the season, I made a video talking about how it didn't feel like the Minnesota Timberwolves had a direction. And I feel like now that D'Lo has come back, Anthony Edwards has continued to show promise. Karl Anthony Towns is back after a lot of missed time throughout the season for various reasons. Now that he is coming back and playing consistently, Jaden McDaniels has really stepped it up. You've seen Good play from Malik Beasley before he is now absent. You've just seen a lot going on with the Minnesota Timberwolves that makes it seem like they are heading in the right direction. And I hope that's the way they're going, because I really feel for Timberwolves fans. I know it's been a long time since they've had anything really good happen to this franchise in terms of success in the playoffs, but I think things are turning around. So if you're a Timberwolves fan, just know that you have me on your side, and I am hopeful for you, and I think that this is the start of something big in Minnesota. That's what I want to say about the Minnesota Timberwolves. This game really it really showcased all the development and everything good I've seen about the Timberwolves this season, and why I'm so optimistic about their future. I think this is the start of something big for the Minnesota Timberwolves. On the Sacramento Kings side of the ball, they got to get De'Aaron Fox some help. I don't know how Luke Walton isn't fired. I want Tyrese Halliburton starting. I have a lot of complaints about the Sacramento Kings, but I've complained about them so much. And then nothing changes. Nothing changes with the Sacramento Kings, so I'm not even gonna worry about it anymore. They'll fix things when they want to fix things, I guess. Outside of that, I think probably I'll talk about a couple of the other games. I'll talk about Clippers Trailblazers. Paul George has been killing it, and I am sick of watching all the Paul George hate. I don't understand what Paul George has done to so many people. I tweeted out earlier during this game, I'm watching Paul George, and he's playing really, really well, as he has been over this stretch of the season where Kawhi has missed a bunch of time. Paul George has really stepped up his game. He's kind of returned to the form, maybe not exactly quite up to the level that he was at the beginning of the season when he was an MVP candidate, but he's played really, really well. And I tweeted out, I think Paul George is going to be really good in the playoffs this year. I said, I think he's going to have a good playoff run. And immediately, within the first 15, 20 comments, about 50, 60, 70% of them were, really? You think so? Or I'm screenshotting this to come back to it in the playoffs. There was very few people in those initial comments. Eventually, later, ones did roll in where people were more positive. But in those initial comments, people saw that tweet about Paul George and were like, nah, I don't think so. Like, I get it. He has, like, last year, he did not perform up to the level that we know Paul George is able to perform up to. I get it. I know he's had disappointing playoffs in the past, but this is a new season, and I really don't understand why it's like, maybe it's like a rivalry thing. Maybe it's the whole playoff P thing. I don't know. I just don't quite understand why Paul George gets so much hate. Are jokes fun? Yeah, jokes can be hilarious sometimes. But when I'm tweeting about just some random thing, like saying I think he's going to play well, and people immediately, like, the first comments are, you're an idiot, you're wrong, why would you think that? It's kind of crazy, and I don't really get it. That's not really my thing, but, whatever. Float your boat, I guess. Shout out to Paul George. Incredible game, like I said, to beat the Trailblazers without Kawhi Leonard, given the Trailblazers did not have Damian Lillard. Great game from Norman Powell and CJ McCollum. They just don't have enough without Damian Lillard. This team kind of lives and dies with Damian Lillard. Without him, they're going to fall. So they need Dame to come back soon. I believe he is slated to come back next game. Hopefully there's no setbacks or anything. Yeah. But speaking of setbacks, James Harden suffered a setback with his recovery from his hamstring injury for the Brooklyn Nets. Hope he comes back soon. They did get a win tonight against the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion was fantastic in this game. The Pelicans are just not good. They just don't have the right talent around Zion Williamson. I'm hoping they take this offseason to reevaluate and figure out what talent that Zion needs around him and take the time to put that talent in place. Give Zion chances to win. I want to see Zion in the playoffs already. It's his second season, and I'm already sick of not seeing him in the playoffs just because of how good he is. I want to see him on a playoff stage. Kyrie Irving was incredible tonight. He's been a top 15 player this season, and he's slowly, honestly, become one of my favorite players in the league. And I think that's just because of how much I love watching him play, how much I love watching him prove people wrong. I know all season people have been talking about how Like there was that weird narrative at the beginning of the season where Kyrie should retire and, Kyrie needs to be traded for Kendrick Perkins, said JJ Redick. Like, are we watching the same basketball? I just like seeing players prove people wrong, and Kyrie Irving does that. He's really, really good, really talented, and even if he is kind of a weird dude, he can ball, and that's really all you got to see when you're watching Kyrie Irving play basketball. Shout out to him. Great game from him, carrying the Nets without Kevin Durant and James Harden in this win over the Pelicans, helping them keep pace with the Sixers, trying to get that 1 seed, which I do think will be really important when the playoffs come around. As for the Hawks and Magic, Clint Capella kept dominating. He's the perfect center for this team. I think he's one of the perfect centers for Trae Young. He catches lobs, he plays good defense, he protects the rim. If Trae Young's guy gets past him on the defensive side of the ball, Clint Capella is going to contest him at the rim and make things difficult, which is, I think, what you need next to a Trae Young. So I'm hopeful that Clint Capella is going to continue to play really well. I'm hopeful that the Hawks continue to play through this hot streak because I think they're going to give some team trouble in the playoffs. I think they could be a second round team. I think the only 3 locks to go to the second round, and I don't want to necessarily say locks because everything can change in a COVID season and it's just a weird year in general. But I would say probably the locks are the Nets, the Bucks, and the Sixers, and that whoever makes that 4th spot is wide open. You got the Hawks, you got the Heat, you've got the Celtics, you've got the Hornets when LaMelo Ball comes back. There's a lot of openness there, and the Hawks are making a strong push for that. And I think Nate McMillan is pushing for a Coach of the Year spot. I don't know if a coach has ever won Coach of the Year coming in at the middle of the season, but if there's ever been a time to consider it, it's probably now. He's been really good after being fired from the Pacers, coming in as the Hawks head coach after firing Lloyd Pierce. He has this team playing a completely different, more organized style of basketball, and it's really shown on the court. On the Orlando Magic side of the ball, they're showing development. I think the Magic do have a bright future coming up. Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter has really shown out since joining the Magic. I'm on what's the word? I'm on record. That's the word. As saying that I thought the Magic made a bad trade. Thought they could have got more from Nikola Vucevic. And while, yeah, they could have gotten more, Wendell Carter's proving me wrong. He's playing really, really well, and I'm happy to see that for him. So maybe this was just a role change he needed. Maybe he needed to be more involved with the team. I've always said I thought he had like Al Horford type potential. We'll see if he ever lives up to that. But for right now, he's playing really well for the Magic. And finally, I guess I'm just going to talk about all the games because I also want to talk a little bit about this one. Hornets, Knicks. Knicks have won 7 in a row. And they are another team that may be lobbying for that 4 spot. Like I said, winning 7 in a row. They're good. They're just straight up good. They're not like a Cinderella story or anything like that. They're just good. And Julius Randle's a big reason for that. RJ Barrett's a big reason for that. Emmanuel Quickley, man. I love Emmanuel Quickley. He just balls. He just puts the ball in the basket, and that's what he does every single night. He amazes the hell out of me, and I love watching him play. For the Hornets side of the ball, they need LaMelo back. They need Gordon Hayward back. They are really riddled with injuries right now. PJ Washington had a really good game. Terry Rozier continues to play really well. They're just lacking in depth without those 2 guys, 2 of their best players. Do I want to say they're 2 best players? I don't want to make that statement. I don't want to make that statement right now because you could also throw in Terry Rozier there. But 2 of their best players in Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball. Yeah. So we'll see if they're able to come back and stay healthy. I think these are 2 teams that are going to battle, like I said, for that 4 spot. And I'm excited for both of their futures. I think they both have bright futures. You could throw in the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic. And I talked about the Timberwolves. There's just a lot of young talent in the league, and I'm really optimistic about the direction of a lot of teams right now. So if you hear me nonstop praising these young teams, maybe I'm just blinded by the optimism, or maybe I'm right, and every team is just going to be really good in a couple seasons. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think about what I said about the Timberwolves. Let me know what you think I said, or let me know what you think of the whole Paul George hate thing that I mentioned later in the video. If you made it to this part of the video, drop in the comments below. Let's say OKC will win the finals in 2023. Let's go with that or something. So with that being said, I will see you guys later. Everyone say it back.